What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Beyond Influence. We have a not, never happening, but rare occasion of Kwame solo episode. And so I'm excited because I get to talk to somebody who I feel like I have very good flow of conversation with. It's just going to be bro on bro, fam on fam, homie on homie, having a good conversation. So I'm excited today to have with me Vin Matano. Vin, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. Just trying to get back into the swing of things ever since coming back from Ken.
Yes, of course you are, man. Everybody is. Everybody's super busy. It just seems like a ton of catch up. And just for the crowd, for the people, for the audience, for anybody who tunes in, I know we're going to open up a lot more on Can, but I just want to tell them a little bit about who you are, man. Can you give us a little bit of a background?
For sure, yeah. So name is Vin. I run a B2B influencer marketing agency called Creator Buzz, and we just hit our 1 year as of June, so that's pretty exciting. And prior to that, I was in B2B SaaS for the past 6 years. I also am a creator, which is how I got into the business. So I was creating a lot of content about my job in tech sales, which I know you know all too well, and started working with a lot of tech brands and doing the first few partnerships on LinkedIn as a creator, 3 years ago or so. And that's really how I got into the business.
That's super dope, man. And it's brought you here. It's really funny because when you think about the landscape of creators and who people know, we're over at Can, we're, putting out stories, and I put out a story of like meeting you. And one of my Love is Blind, co-stars or whatever you want to call it from one of our seasons reaches out, and Johnny McIntyre, and he's like, yo, I love this guy. I've been following his content. And it's so funny, this massive spider web of people who digest each other's content. So that was really cool. He's from, he used to work in the B2B world, and now he's full-time creating. So very happy for him. And obviously I used to work at Zoom Info, and you used to work at, do you mention the company's name?
Yeah, Demandbase. Yeah, I was there for 6 years.
Okay.
And that's really how I got my whole start. And it's funny, like you mentioned, your friend like had recognized me, and I definitely I'm not the biggest creator by any means, but I was making content in such a specific niche in tech sales that by default, anyone that was in tech sales, like that would have me. It was like there was a good chance that they may have seen at least one of my videos. So it was always funny. I'd go to conferences and I was like, I shouldn't be recognized, but sometimes I do, and it's pretty crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, I think one thing that I really respect about the B2B creator space is like the lack of saturation right now.
Yeah.
It's like right now, if you are a consistent B2B creator, you really, really stand out. When I first got into the creator world, I didn't even know I was in the creator world because I was working at Zoom Info and I was just sharing the stories about what I was doing throughout my day to day, what I liked. Like when I feel like you're someone who's just inspired at work, you tend to share a lot. And, you're on the LinkedIns and you're talking about your day. And sometimes you create a video, sometimes you're talking. And it just creates this really cool sense of community, because when you're on a platform like LinkedIn, it becomes a significantly more shared experience because it's so niche, right? When you put something out into the world, there's billions of people and they have so many different examples that I feel like you may not be relating to as close an audience. But when you are on LinkedIn, you know that you are, primarily in the corporate world, or even if in other spaces, that the people who follow you or the people you are connected to are in the corporate world. And so it definitely creates a sense of community that is really, really interesting. And it's really flourishing, man. It's really awesome to see. So, obviously now you are very heavily focused in that B2B creator space.
Oh yeah.
Why did why did this stick out to you when you initially started?
Well, you hit the nail right on the head. Like I started creating content mostly on LinkedIn. I started just sharing stuff about my day-to-day job in sales. And I started to notice that there was a bunch of other people that were like me that were building really small audiences, but those small audiences were really valuable to the right company. All of the people that followed me at one point in time were all salespeople. So if you were a sales tech company, like a Zoom Info, for example, it'd be pretty wise maybe to put some of your marketing budget towards a creator like myself. And I look at my other creator friends who are getting brand deals on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, and I was a little envious of them, of like the opportunities they were getting. And I always had this hypothesis back in, I think it was like 2019, I had some cold emails that I was sending to was it Atlassian or Asana and companies like that, where I'm like, oh, I can do a brand deal for them on LinkedIn. And so I always had this thought early on that like LinkedIn will become a platform where brand deals are happening, and more so supporting the tech space and specifically. And then once I got my first brand deal, I think it was 20, maybe 2019 or 2020, somewhere around that time. It was like $200 for a post. And that was like the confidence to be like, okay, the tides are changing here. And I was working with a few brands on the side while I had my 9 to 5 job at Demand Base. And that was enough for me to say, okay, there's people are paying or willing to pay for this service. And just went one day, decided like, I'm going to quit my job and like start this business. Like, without any plan. I didn't even have a name or a website or bank account or nothing in place, and document my whole journey ever since.
That's super cool, man. And obviously, you've gotten so far now that you are being sent to Cannes, or at least at Cannes with a
Oh
brand.
yeah.
And so, before we dive too deep into all of how that happened, let's dive into Cannes itself, man. How was that experience? Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Whenever it was,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was super cool. I feel like all my time is all in disarray right now, but yeah, man, how was Cannes?
I mean, it was awesome. It blew my mind. I think most people, I don't know if you can relate to this. I didn't actually know what it was. Like, I knew there was the film festival, did not know there
Mhm.
was a separate festival for marketing.
Yeah.
So that was like, I learned about that. And then I actually did a lot of research on it because I was just curious about it. And so it was an event that started in the 50s. I think it was like 1954. And it was basically a spinoff of the film festival, but focused on advertising film. And it was started in Venice, Italy. And it became this very prestigious event where like the top advertisers would be there, top publishers. But now what we're seeing is that a lot of these companies' advertising budgets are now going towards creators. And there's this really kind of big overlap of creators and advertisers. It's kind of like a little bit of the changing of the guard, where the old school advertisers, I mean, you saw at Cannes, all the companies that had beachfront access were all big tech companies. And they were paying creators, they're bringing creators and doing all these interesting things. And all the publishers were like, I mean, I didn't even see any of them. I heard they were like pushed way off back. So that it was really great creators to connect with, executives were there to connect with, top brands were there, really fun activations, a mix of everything.
Did you know Can was dope. Can was really amazing. I was just talking to my one of our leaders about it right before this conversation, man. I think there's a few things that you have to understand about Can going into it. First thing is it's kind of like keeping up with the Joneses for a lot
Yeah.
of these brands and companies. I feel like it's I want to have the biggest thing. And so it's really important to keep that in mind. Like you said, it really is very high level, very prestigious, you know?
Yeah.
But with that being said, there are opportunities for everyone to experience some of that glamour, some of that luxury, which I think is really cool now, right? Because now that a lot of companies are shifting their ad dollars towards the creator, commerce and creator space and influencer marketing, they're inviting creators in to show the world this. And I think what's really cool about it is you don't have to be this 500,000 follower, 1 million follower creator. I was meeting creators who were brought there by some of the biggest companies out there, the Metas, the Snapchats, the Adobes, who may only have 15, 20, 50,000 followers, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like it makes that feel a lot more inclusive. So I thought it was really cool, man. And obviously, I got to see 50 Cent, which I thought was really.
Still
I
jealous
got a
about
free
that.
50 Cent concert. You know what I'm saying? So you can't complain. What would you say is your favorite thing that you experienced, man?
Well, I'm still jealous of that because if 50 Cent is like one of my favorite artists, whenever I close a deal, I play Hustler's Ambition every single time.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I'm
Yes.
jealous about that. I saw a Jason Derulo concert, which I don't think is as cool. However, it was still a good time. Um, no, my favorite part about Can, I think, was honestly the presence of the tech companies. And I always feel that being a tech creator or B2B creator or knowledge creator, whatever you want to call us, we're kind of like the ugly stepchild or whatever that saying is. We're always forgotten. It's always like the mainstream, like consumer focused creators that are always getting invited to the coolest events. They're at Coachella, they're at all these cool things. And the B2B creators, the tech creators, like I feel like we didn't have our thing that was like really reputable and cool and exclusive. And I feel like Cannes is becoming that, at least because a lot of like you said, a lot of the tech companies were bringing creators like us there. And so that was the most eye opening thing to me. I mean, I'm betting my entire business on this whole idea of B2B influencer marketing. And so Cannes just in general validated that for me. And then, of course, like meeting with other people. I think one of my favorite sessions was with Colin and Samir, like if I had to get really specific. But that's just my core takeaways. But I'm curious, what was your highlights?
Yeah, that is, I think that's a really, really important thing that you said there, right? Like you are betting your business on what this belief is about B2B creators. And I feel like validation is a really big thing. When you see people in high positions validating what you are saying, or, putting some thought behind it, or wanting to know more about it, it is such an incredible experience, and an eye-opening experience, and a validation experience. And yeah, I think that that's a really cool component. I mean, for me, I really loved that you could not walk a block without seeing someone who was, either important, or somebody who you look up to or admire, or someone who's worked really hard in their career to get where they are. I just think it was a place that really cultivated motivation and excitement, and in all industries as well, right? When I became a soccer player, when I really got into soccer, watching the U.S. soccer at the age that I used to watch a guy called Josie Altidore, right, who was the forward for the U.S. men's team. And I ran into him at an airport like a few years ago. And I remember like, well, this was after my Love Is Blind experience. And so like, I kind of had the feeling of what it was like to be approached out in public. And like, he was on the phone, and I was like, in that moment, I was like, damn, like if I was on the phone at the airport, I might not want to be approached. But I was like, I got to catch my flight, and I just have to say something to him. So I walked up to him, and I was like, hey man, like I'm really sorry about this, but like, I'm just such a big fan. Wanted to introduce myself. And he got off the phone call. He's like, hey, I'm gonna call you back. And spoke to me, and we took a picture, and then we connected on Instagram later, I think a day or two later. And I saw him at one of the first events that I went to, a Patau event. And we just chat for a while. We chat for about 30 minutes about any and all things. He gave me his number. And then,
That's cool, man.
yeah. And I was like, hey, I'll follow up at some time. And then this is when I was like, all right, this place has such a special energy. I am like, it's our last night. Everybody's last night. They stay out as late as they possibly can because they want to experience as much as can before they got to get on their flight. So I'm up until I think my flight is at 7:30 or so. So I start heading home from the bar at like 5. Yeah. I'm like, I'm good. Everything's, put together. I can just throw some stuff in my bag and I'm good to go. I pretty much knew like I had timed it out. I knew if I got home by 5:30, I'd be fine. I'm walking home. I think actually it might have been like 4:30 or so because I spent some time here, but about 4:30, I'm walking home, and lo and behold, in front of me, I see Josie out the door walking home as well, right? And I'm like, Josie, and he's like, Kwame. And we stop. And this is at 4 or 5 in the morning,
Wow.
right? Seeing one of the guys that I idolize most. We had a brief conversation at one event, but we stopped here. And at 5 in the morning, we had like a 30-minute conversation, right? And he was telling me all the ideas and all the connections and all the conversations that went on in Canada. He's like, this place is just electric, right? You meet so many incredible people. You learn so much from them. And I'm like, tell me about it, right? We're literally speaking in this moment. And I feel the same way being in your presence, right? And so that had to be my favorite thing.
That's amazing. That's a great
right?
story.
Right?
That's a great story.
It's just, yeah, it's so cool. So yeah, I just think there's so much, there's so much opportunity at Cannes, right? You can run into the right person at the right time. And I feel like, obviously it costs a lot to get out to Cannes, but if you were ever thinking about positioning yourself in a way where you are starting a business or you are trying to get into a certain industry and you want to meet the right people, when it comes to the ad space or the influencer marketing space or the technology space, go to Cannes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It is quite
Yeah.
expensive to get out there too, though, like you had said. So
Yeah.
like, I think there's ways where you can like kind of budget it.
Yes.
I don't think you necessarily need to buy the pass is like one of the most expensive things. I think without any discounts, I think the pass is like $4,000, which
Yes.
is insane. And I know a lot of people that went to the conference without even buying the pass because there's so much going on outside of it. So like you could essentially not buy the pass. You could stay outside of Cannes. Like I stayed outside in this area called the Belarus, which is like 10, 15 minutes outside of Cannes.
Yeah.
Um, and you can kind of budget it if you really, really want to just like make it there. And of course, if you have maybe a small following or you are a creator, you can definitely approach any of the brands. So what I did, honestly, I didn't have any plans to go to Cannes until like 2 weeks before the conference.
Oh wow.
So I went on the Cannes, some few of the Cannes like website links, and I saw all the sponsors, and I had some connections from some of the sponsors that were listed there. So I just DM'd some of the sponsors, and I was like, "Hey, I saw you're going to Cannes. Would love to do some activations there with you." One of the brands was like, "Hey, we can't like fly anyone out, but if you're going to be there, like maybe we'll do some content." And so I'm like, "I'm there." I'm there. I didn't have anything booked yet,
Yeah.
but I was like, I'm there. So that worked out. And then another one, literally, I signed a contract the day before my flight, actually the morning of my flight, with
Wow.
another one that I just saw was out there. And I said, hey, I would love to do maybe some like street interviews for you. And I can give you the street interviews. And that's another way where you can maybe like help financially just to get you out there.
Wow. See, I love that. I love the hustle and the grind. I think that those are important things for people to know. That it's like if you really want an opportunity to do these things, you can't wait on them. Right. You got to go searching for them. And there are definitely a lot of ways to make it happen. Right. When you were, if I may ask, when you were, you had connections at certain places, but let's just say within title, role, and space and vertical, who were you reaching out to when you decided to reach out to these companies?
As a creator, so for example, I would first look to see who's like attending the event, who's sponsoring the event.
Yeah.
Then I would go to LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but you can probably do it without LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You can look up influencer marketing managers, social media managers. If it's a really small company, you could probably just go right to the top person, the CMO or something like that.
Yeah.
And you could I would send them an email just saying like, hey, saw you're a sponsor or attending Cannes. Like, either if you're an aspiring creator or if you're already a creator yourself, I think if you're not a creator, you can always go like the UGC route where it's like, hey, I can help create some street interviews for you in exchange for, X amount of dollars, whatever you deem right. Or maybe it's in exchange for the conference pass or whatever is right for you. But if you already have an audience, then of course, just like give them some of your examples of like what you might do at the activation, and definitely like attend to anything that they throw and you'll highlight it in their videos and things like that. So you can get super creative, super scrappy. Like I said, I didn't have my trip planned until 2 weeks before the conference, and like it's very much possible to do that.
Yeah. I think that's an important thing to mention. I think that is something that escapes a lot of people in terms of just like the realm of knowledge of the industry. Is you don't have to have a big following to make content for someone.
Oh no.
Yeah, right. You can train yourself to be social media savvy and understand how to create content without creating it on your own platform. I know people who make six figures just making user generated content
Yeah.
without having a big following, right? Because they're diligent about it. They reach out to companies. They get all the perks of being a creator without having to actually, worry about their own platform or the way that they engage within their own community. And so I think that that's a big thing that a lot of people don't know about. You can reach out to content or companies and ask to make content on behalf of them
Yep.
without having your own platform. So keep that in mind. That's a really important gem. Thanks for sharing that, Vin. I think that's a really important one. So we're going to go a little bit, I guess, like a little bit deeper here, right? To talking about a few things that come with the content creation and why you thought you were confident enough to transition from being in corporate America. All right. So if you could for me, I'd love to talk about the first brand deal you ever got I guess the first that you ever got, and then the brand deal that you got that made you think, okay, I can maybe do this for a living.
Yeah. So the first brand deal I got definitely did not make me think I could do this for a living. I was like, how are people full-time creators? Because the first brand deal I got was like $200. And I was like, man, I have to do so many of these.
Yeah.
So that was just, I think, eye opening, just to say, oh, someone's willing to pay me. But it wasn't by any means something where I was like, oh, I'm going to be. And by the way, I'm not a full time creator now. It's the content creation I do
Mhm.
now is part time, and all the content I do now is really like to fuel the business. Like all of my income and everything comes from the business. But I am definitely still a creator. I do actively brand deals each month and stuff like that. So I just want to be clear there. Um,
Okay.
the one I would say, like the one brand deal I did get that was pretty eye opening was like the first time I worked with like a major tech brand. It was like a $9,000 brand deal, and I think it was for like 3 videos, and that happened probably 3 or 4 years into my content journey. So it took a long time. Like I
Okay.
by no means had like this explosive growth. Like I'd never had any viral videos. It was always just this very slow up and to the right, like growth, and it's still that way. Like I don't have any crazy viral videos.
I
Um,
mean, you do
well,
now.
I did have a few now, but those are few and far between. Yeah, but for the most
Yeah.
part, it's been a slow growth. And the first one I had was this was a $9,000 deal, and I remember like, holy shit, like this is crazy. Like if this is something you can get monthly, like you can. I mean, I can now. I see the path of being a full time creator, and now I'm at the point where because of the focus on the business, I basically only want to do like these really higher premium brand deals. And if it's less volume, that's fine for me because I'm not relying on that
Yeah.
content income. For example, like, went to Cannes with Adobe, and as you can imagine, the larger tech company probably pays better than maybe a smaller company in general. So that's the type of thing that I want to prioritize now, given that I don't need to do so much volume of brand deals.
I can dig that. So that's definitely a cool little compare and contrast of like, and it's interesting. I didn't really know what the breakdown of your, finances were. So
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur who also creates content, you don't have to tell us the digits themselves, but in terms of percentage wise, how do you look at your income stream?
Oh man, well, so I share a lot of the finances on LinkedIn. I do like this whole build in public content, and each month I break down the finances for the business. And part of that
Amazing.
is showing brand deals that I get. I actually missed last
Yeah.
month, but I will do one for June. Um, I would say the brand deals probably equate to maybe like 25% of the revenue for the business. I just kind of have that funneled into the business. Um, but now I'm at a point where I feel like I think one of my hot takes, I think there's a lot of talk right now about, oh, we're prioritizing like long-term partnerships, and we want to work with creators, want to work with brands in the long term, and of course that's the goal. But I think creators maybe are too hyper focused on that, and they shoot themselves in the foot because they want the long-term partnership right off the bat. And in most
Mhm.
cases, the long-term partnership is never going to happen right off the bat. You have to basically prove yourself. They might give you one video, they might give you 2 videos, and from there they'll see, okay, this is a creator who we can trust, and they'll keep coming back. And so, with Adobe, for example, I worked with them a few years ago. I did a few videos for them, and I went above and beyond. Like I was like, this video needs to be amazing. Like I'm not a creator who is like, if I get a brand deal, I'm just gonna do a lazy one just to get it out. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna over deliver. And ever since then, it's been now maybe 3 years. I've been working with Adobe, who is one of the main companies I wanted to work with on a
Yeah.
consistent basis. Now they didn't come to me and say, "Hey, here's a 12-month contract," but they're pretty consistent when they come back with opportunities for events or specific product launches. And now they're like in terms of my brand partnerships, they're one of my like longest brand partnerships because I was willing to start
Yeah.
off with just one video with them.
That is all right. That's dope. So yeah.
Last year, I'll say this: last year, I made like $94,000 as a part-time content creator. So again, main focus was the business. I had a 9 to 5 job for the first half of the year. And then I
Yeah.
ran the business the back half of the year. And through that entire year of 2024, I made $94,000 as a part-time content creator. This year, I think we've already beat that, just because of
Wow.
the brand partnerships that I'm forging. And a lot of them are reoccurring now, which is, again, the point I made earlier of like, if you can get in just with one piece of content, like just do it and over deliver. If they ask for one
Yeah.
video, like give them 2 videos. Like who cares? Like if they ask for one story, give them like 12 stories. Like
Yeah.
just flood the feed and over deliver. And I'm sure I promise it'll pay off.
I love it. I love the words of encouragement, the steps. It is, I think it's really enlightening and eye opening to speak to someone who's very well versed in the industry. I feel like there's content creators and people who understand content creation. I think that, obviously if there's an overlap and you have someone who creates content that also understands the industry,
Yeah.
I think those things are important. But sometimes I feel like people who create content, like for me, I've learned significantly more about the content creation industry in the last year,
Mm.
year and a half. I used to create a lot of content and it was more so just getting the job done. And now I really understand a lot more of the ins and outs of it. And I feel like it's helped me significantly as a content creator. And it speaks to how much I make, right?
Yeah.
Like, already this last year as a content creator as a whole, I think I made like 80K,
That's amazing.
right? Right. And that's a massive blessing. And I think this year I've already, raked in about 210. Right. Yeah. And we're halfway through the year. That's a massive blessing.
That's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from understanding the industry a
It
lot more.
does.
Yes. So yeah, it's all a blessing. And it's one of those industries where you have the opportunity to really like invest in yourself, both within like the time and the content creation aspect of it, but also learning about the industry. And if you can really get both down, you can do numbers. I'm still really, really intrigued and interested in the streaming side of
Mm.
things, right? I really want to get into streaming because what I've realized is for streamers, typically their audience, like they are their product, they are their person, they are their niche, right? I've noticed that a streamer could have 100,000 followers and get 10% engagement, right?
Mm.
Which is an astonishingly high engagement
Oh
rate,
yeah.
right? Like, and that's because they are their niche. And so if they post a picture of them, people are like, this is why I follow this person,
Right.
right? As people who, have different niches, or like as someone who's a social celebrity who was on a reality TV show which is very heavily focused on relationships, my niche ends up typically fitting into the yes me, but more so my relationship, right? And so that's been an interesting one to really work around, right? And I am currently trying to figure out a way to make my brand and my niche a bit more independent. Not to say I'm trying to separate from my
Right.
partnership, but I am trying to make sure that on my page, the end product that people expect is me.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's powerful,
And
man.
so, yeah, so it's a lot of work to get there. I think it's something that once people have it down, they get a lot more impact out of the content they share, and they get the most out of their partnerships because there's a lot more trust within it. And I feel like streaming is a category of creator that has a really good grasp on that.
Yeah, so you bring up a good point. I want to get your opinion on like niches. Like, what is your opinion on creators getting started with the niches? Do you go pick a niche, or do you kind of or no to niches? What do you think?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think in order to grow, you have to have a niche,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to have some sort of niche that people like come to take something from, right? It's very rare that people are able to just like be just themselves and gain a following. Like I know you could, but it's very rare, and you have to do something like really large
Yeah. Oh yeah.
in order to really see growth, especially in today's day and age. If you started doing this 5 years ago, it would have been a whole different story, but just about everybody can be a creator now, right? And so that's changed a lot of things. And so with that being said, I think the best way to really gain gain a following through social media is to have a niche. And then if you want, as you gain, maybe as you set certain goals, let's say once I hit 100,000, I start to focus more on myself, right? I know fitness creators who literally say like, I'll see a post from something and they'll be like, hey, I know I never really share about my family or my relationship, but here it is,
Right.
right? They bring a bit of themselves into it, and then they slowly change that niche to more about them and their life. I would say the best niche that like if I had my way, like if I could jump into a niche, it would be lifestyle, right? Because ultimately you are able to talk about all the things that you experience and have them be a learning moment for your audience.
Yeah.
And when you look at statistics, statistics say the two largest categories of content creation are lifestyle and fashion, right? And so a lot of people are within those categories. The categories with the highest engagement rate, interestingly enough, is home decor.
Wow.
Yeah, home decor for a couple of reasons. I think one, I think I kind of make up, but I think it makes sense. I think it's due to like the level of expertise, because anyone can be a fashion creator, but in order to have home decor, you like really have to know your stuff.
Mhm.
Like you're putting one and two together. But the one that statistically is actually a viable truth to it is it's due to the the number of followers. A vast majority of home decor creators fall into the micro and nano categories. And so once you, as you are in the micro and nano like categories of following levels, you get the most engagement. Obviously, as you grow, there's just saturation, there's more
Mhm.
content, and then your engagement fades a little bit more. But those are a few things that I think about. So if I really, really want to hone in, I feel like I would pivot a little bit to lifestyle creating. But yeah, if you wanted to start from the bottom and grow, you should probably pick a niche, unless you're like just really cool and always hang out with celebrities or something, and people will just follow you because you're just an awesome person, you know?
Yeah, well, I think like what you said earlier about like now being in the industry, your content has improved, you understand it better. I think being in the industry as well, like when we look for creators, like the niche is very important because that's how we source creators. You know, if a brand wants to target a certain persona, we need that niche at least to tell us, okay, this is worth the investment. Plus, if you do have a niche, like for example, in our business and at Creator Buzz, we're working with B2B creators. And so if we're looking for a specific persona, like we're doing a client campaign right now where they're looking to target CPAs. Only
That's an interesting one.
super interesting. I didn't think there was even CPA creators, but there's like a
Yeah.
huge community of them. And so their product is for CPAs, and it wouldn't make sense to work with anyone else if they're not a CPA. So something like that, where the niche is so important, where like we won't even consider anybody else if they're not in that niche. So I always recommend, you know, especially getting started, pick a niche, go deep with it, and as you grow, I agree with you. You can start to sprinkle in other areas of your interests.
Yeah.
And honestly, if necessary, also spinning off another page. Like there's a friend of mine, Jack Appleby. He grew as a marketer at first, but he loves basketball. And he started creating a whole other basketball page. And that page blew up. It's about him trying to like, you know, get back into basketball shape at like in his 30s or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And so now he has these two media properties where it's like one where he talks about marketing and he has like one of the biggest newsletters, I think, in the world for marketing. And then now he has this whole basketball page where like he's documenting his journey playing basketball. And so like that's a case where it's like maybe it makes sense to just spin off another page.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, I know people who definitely like they want to keep certain pages within certain categories, and that makes a lot of sense because you want to be able to dive fully in it, right? Like for me, I wish I had a yapping page, right?
You just start one.
Because there's points in my day where I just sit there and I'm like, yo, I just want to talk about this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it's definitely a category that I feel like I'll start at some point. But that's, now relating back to why I feel like at some point streaming is really going to be more my category.
Mhm.
And so I really definitely, I want to learn a lot more about it. Like I see the I Show Speeds and I see the Kai Sanats and I'm like, they're very successful and they're definitely like consistent streamers who are always on. I just want to be on for maybe an hour or two a day and have good, structured, intelligent conversations where you laugh occasionally,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I do think I think there are really great ways to have people really support you as a human being. But I think we're having a lot of good conversation here, man, and I appreciate you hopping on once again. We're coming up to the end of our conversation, so I'd love to just dive into a few things that we usually talk about with our creators. I think there are a few questions that I feel like I already know the answer to, but I'll pivot a little bit because usually we talk a little bit about like, would you rather do Instagram or TikTok? And I know that you are someone who's very active on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
right? So that's your thing. So I think we could look at these from a frame of mind of you are a B2B content creator. You are very focused on LinkedIn, but otherwise within the content you create, what would you use? Is that okay?
That's okay. Yeah, it's cool. I'm active everywhere, but I definitely my most active on LinkedIn. I'll say.
Okay.
In terms of like a strategy, I think like YouTube probably makes the most sense, just because like, I think it's very similar to
Wow.
LinkedIn in the fact where you can go deep and share knowledge. And also, you don't need a big following on YouTube. Like, one
Yeah.
subscriber is worth so much more than like a TikTok follower or an Instagram follower. The followers on Instagram and TikTok are very, people give a follow very generously, whereas a sub on YouTube, especially, I'm looking at my patterns, my habits. I'm like, I'm not subbing to this person. I need to see multiple videos that I love from
Yeah.
this person in order for me to subscribe. And even the videos that I come back to, I often forget to subscribe.
Yeah.
So I'm not that active on YouTube. But if I had to think of a business standpoint, I think YouTube probably would be number two. In terms of what I
Okay.
personally enjoy using as a consumer, Instagram. I just enjoy using Instagram because you have the
Okay.
Reels feature, so you have that short form video. I love stories. Like, I love engaging
Yeah.
with people's stories. I love posting stories, even if it has nothing to do with my business. I just enjoy it. And the
Yeah.
DMs feature, I feel like, is way better than TikToks. I like engaging with people.
Yeah.
I always shoot people DMs. I try to support as much as possible. And so, yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. I can dig that. That's definitely a good breakdown. So I appreciate that. So I guess like a couple other things. I'm just gonna ask. It's a this or that. You give the answer and then you give a quick reason why.
Okay.
Okay. So reels or carousel of photos.
Um, Reels, because I love making videos and I love telling stories through video.
Okay. Nice. Would you rather do a brand partnership for well, I guess you kind of answered this one, but would you do a short term or a long term in terms of brand partnerships?
I think long term is always the goal, but I
Yeah.
don't think I would not go away from a short term. You could have a really cool experience with a short term brand, and sometimes some brands don't need long term partnerships. Sometimes you run out of things to say with this brand. So I don't
Yeah.
always think that the long term partnerships is always the answer. If it's a mutual fit and there's a really great integration, then yes,
Yeah.
definitely have that long term partnership. But don't force it.
Yeah. I can dig it. I like
Yeah.
that. So batch content or spontaneous creating.
I, I I'm like somewhere in the middle of that. So I don't do spontaneous creating where I just like take my phone out like Sarah Uy and like film herself. I can't do that. I need a script.
Yeah.
But
She's
unfortunately,
really good at that.
oh, she's great at that. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't batch my content. So I'm somewhere in the middle where like I'll write a script for one video. I record one video at a time and I edit one video at a time. And then once that's posted, I move on to the next.
Nice. I can dig it. All right. Um, and so I guess in terms of the this or that, we'll call it for that. But a question that I have for you to kind of end this round is what do you think is the biggest time waster for new content creators?
Ooh, good question. The biggest time waster for new creators is probably over editing their videos. And I'm speaking from like experience. Like, that was my biggest issue, and it still is my biggest
Yeah.
issue. I'm so maniacal. Like, when I'm editing, I'm not even that great of an editor, but like I am like just looking through the detail and probably spending way too much time on something that probably doesn't have a good payoff. Like
Yeah.
the change in scene, but between 1 second and 2 second, like it probably doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
And especially if you're first getting started, like I think I'm someone that thinks about quality over quantity, but I think when you're getting started, I think there's some merit to just putting out as much as possible just to kind of like get used to posting. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, don't get so maniacal about editing in the beginning.
Yeah. I like that. And it's interesting. Like Instagram now has a feature where it's like trial
Mm,
reels. And I saw a really interesting technique where you could create the same reel 3 times, right? With a different initial hook, right? And then post it 3 times in 3 different places, or sorry, at 3 different times using those 3 different hooks and figure out which one is getting the most traction as a trial
Mm,
before you post it on your actual page, and then just delete the other two.
that's a good
So there's
idea.
a lot, yeah, there's a lot of stuff now that helps you to open up and understand more of the habits of your audience and kind of leveraging the post more as opposed to be super, curated about it and just see what happens.
I like that.
So I feel like a lot of stuff is leaning that way.
Have you tried the trials yet? I actually haven't tried it yet.
I have not. I have not because I feel like most of my stuff is more specific to my audience,
Mhm.
right? Like they have to know me to really get it. But I do have a folder of like reels and TikToks that I'm going to create over the next month or so. I'm going to go on a bit of a spree soon.
Let's go.
Yes. So I'm going to create a lot of content over the next month. Especially because like July 4th is coming up. We'll have some time off. So while I'm away, I'm going to do a lot of stuff. But during that time, I really, really want to start understanding a bit more about like what I can create to relate to people and like how I can grow my audience. When I started this year, my goal was to get to 1 million followers, which is like really, really tough.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's really, really tough to grow your following. So I'm now about to look at all the different ways that I see other creators grow. And I'm about to focus on those to really see if I can grow my audience. And so, yeah, I think the next month will be really telling. And during that time, I do think I may do a trial or two, but I think I'm going to just put out a bunch of content.
Yeah.
At some point, I think it might be like one a day just to see what happens.
Dude, sometimes you got to get in those eras where you're just experimenting with stuff. And I encourage that too. Like I agree. Sometimes I feel creators, because I feel this way myself where I'm like, oh, I don't want to flood my feed. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it's okay to like just trial some stuff out. And sometimes it's like, okay, you out of those 10 videos, one popped off. What did you do that worked for that one video?
Exactly. And I think one thing that content creators also have to keep in mind is like your feed isn't as annoying as you think.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
People always think like, oh, if I post 10 things today, all of my followers are going to see all 10 things. That is false. I would say it gets segmented to about 10% of your followers per your post. Right. And so if you post 10 things, there's a chance that your most loyal follower would see maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 of those. Right. But apart from that, most of the audience in terms of viewership is dispersed along all of your followers. So don't ever feel like you're doing too much or you have too much, because at the end of the day, there's so much content that's going out nowadays that it's like, so be it. Like, put it out. If you post something an hour after you post something now, like, people probably would have digested this post and then moved on by then.
Right.
Within that hour, they would have forgot that you already took up your quota of posts for the day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not that deep. Essentially, that is the biggest. You know what? We need to cut just this part, right? So that we put it on the internet. For every content creator out there who is worried about people getting annoyed of their content if they post too much, I just want to let you know it's not that deep.
It's not. It's really not. And also, you're not as important as you think. So people are not keeping up with you. You could post. No one's keeping tabs on you.
Yes, 100%. That's great advice. Like, that is the truth to it, right? And
Yeah.
that taps into a lot of other things we'll talk about. But ultimately, yeah, take yourself out of it. Take the cringe out of it. Take the ego out of it. Don't worry about your head. Like people thinking so and so about you. Don't worry about people worrying about you. Like, go out there and do what you got to do. Like, it's your life. It's your money. It's your quality of life that you are impacting significantly if you are diligent within your content creation. So go out there and do it. In 5 years, that moment, you'll think about it all the time and be like, yeah, dog, I did what I wanted to and look where I am now.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. The best things in life, I think, are on the other side of cringe.
Yeah, exactly. That is factual, man. So look, Vin, we're gonna wrap this conversation up soon, but as we go to wrap it up, obviously you're a big B2B creator. You're really, really, thriving within the space, and you are also like, you have a role in a job in a company that is focused on the success of B2B creation.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us what you think the future of content creation is there, and like why you think B2B is such a good space to be in.
Oh, wow, man. I could talk about this for a while, but I'll try to do my best to summarize. I think if you look at B2B, it's 10 years behind what's happening in the consumer space. So all the trends you're seeing in the consumer space will start to happen in B2B. And
Yeah.
my one of my like personal goals is that like there's no top creator established on LinkedIn. You have
Yeah.
like I don't know, TikTok, maybe it's Alex Earl. I don't know who the top creator is. YouTube is Mr.
Yeah.
Beast. Like LinkedIn doesn't have that person yet. And so a lot of
Yeah.
the creators are going to be battling for that. But I think in terms of predictions, what you're going to see is a lot of creator-led businesses happening in B2B and tech. Because you see it happen in the consumer space. There's like Logan Paul with Prime. There's Emma Chamberlain with
Yeah.
her coffee company. You have Hailey Bieber just sold her company for billions of dollars. I think what one of the big trends we'll see is that like, if there is a prominent B2B creator, having them kind of be the face of a business while you have operators operating the business and building the business behind the scenes will probably
Yeah.
start to come true. And I think that will be one of the biggest trends that we'll see in the next 5 years.
Nice. I like it, man. There's definitely some people that stick out, but it's cool, right? I think you have a point. Is that nobody's so well established that that is the end all be all person,
Yep.
you know? So that's a really cool way to look at it, man.
Yeah, LinkedIn's got a billion users and only 1% of their users create content.
Wow. Impactful right there.
Crazy.
I'm going to clip that moment.
Insane.
So, all right. So look, Vin, any last words for our audience? You know, you've obviously crushed this entire conversation, so I appreciate you being here, but you know, anything else that you want the people to know before we call it a day?
No, just thanks for having me, man. I think if you are a creator, don't think it's too late. There's always an audience to build if you put your own taste and your own basically opinion on a certain topic, even if it's oversaturated. So just go out and create.
Yeah, I love it. Just go out and create. We're gonna make a shirt. Let's make a collaborated shirt. That's just go create.
Just go create, man. That's all it is.
Exactly. So look, man, and thanks so much for giving us your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think that our audience is going to really, really thrive off of this conversation. And obviously, along with having our businessy structure of learning and things, it was also just good to get a little powwow and catch up since Cannes as well. So thanks again for your time, man. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate all you're doing as well. Your energy is contagious and great. So I appreciate that.
For sure, my man. So with that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in today to today's episode of Beyond Influence. We are excited to share it with you. And until next time, we'll see you later.